I had always been prepared for this moment. A prisoner to my fate, shackled by forces beyond my control, I stood alone in the cold metal chamber. The oppressive weight of despair pressed down on my chest, and the silence was deafening. There was nothing left to fear. No more time to waste. My executioner was on his way, and I knew exactly what was coming. Death. The promise had been made. The execution was imminent. There was no way out. The shackles around my wrists bit into my skin, a constant reminder of my captivity, of the mistakes that had brought me to this hellish moment. I had been abandoned by those I loved, betrayed by the very system I had once trusted. They had cast me aside as a liability, a burden too dangerous to live. But I had accepted that. In my heart, I knew that I was already as good as dead. And yet, as I stood there, waiting, I felt no fear, only numbness. My mind had already accepted my fate. What could they possibly do to me that would be worse than the torment I had already endured? The cold steel beneath my feet was like an anchor, grounding me in my final moments. Time seemed to stretch, bending and warping as I waited. Each second dragged on, far too long, yet never long enough. I stared ahead, my vision blurry from tears I refused to shed. I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. No, I would face my death with the same dignity I had carried throughout this entire nightmare. And then I heard him. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. The echo of heavy boots on cold metal floors. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized the rhythm. My executioner. He was here. The moment I had prepared for had arrived. The air seemed to grow thicker, and I braced myself, shoulders tensed, eyes closed. I was ready, but the moment never came. Instead, there was silence again. A strange, unnerving stillness. The footsteps stopped. The weight of his presence, that heavy sense of inevitability, lingered in the air, suffocating me. I waited. Nothing happened. No command. No strike. Then, just as I was about to open my eyes, I heard his voice. You were never meant to die. This way. The words hung in the air, confusing me. I blinked, struggling to make sense of what was happening. His voice wasn't harsh, wasn't filled with the coldness I had expected. It was calm, almost regretful. I tried to turn, to see him, but the chains held me in place. Instead, I felt his presence, standing just behind me, watching. My heart raced in my chest, not from fear, but from the realization that this was not going according to plan. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. Why? I whispered, my voice trembling. Because, he said, stepping into my line of sight, his shadow falling over me. You've been betrayed. But that doesn't mean your story ends here. I couldn't understand. How could this be happening? Was I being tortured further, or was this some cruel joke? My mind spun as I tried to process his words. His face remained hidden in the dim light, but his eyes pierced through me. I had seen many faces, but none like his. There was no cruelty in his gaze, no malice. Instead, there was something else, something I couldn't place. Without warning, the chains around my wrists loosened, falling to the floor with a metallic clank. I gasped, instinctively pulling my arms free, my heart pounding louder now. For the first time since I had been captured, I felt free, but not safe. What do you want from me? I demanded, my voice shaking with a mix of confusion and anger. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he moved closer, his figure looming over me like a dark sentinel. The tension in the air was thick enough to choke on, but I refused to cower. Finally, he spoke again, his voice low but steady. Come, we have much to discuss. His hand extended toward me. I couldn't move. My mind screamed at me to run, to resist, but my body refused to obey. Something in his gaze held me captive, something that made me doubt every instinct I had ever known. For a moment, I hesitated. I didn't know if I could trust him. I didn't know if I even had a choice anymore. But as his hand lingered in front of me, I realized that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end. Maybe it was only the beginning. I hesitated, my mind swirling with uncertainty. For a fleeting moment, I wondered if I had lost my sanity. Here I was, standing before the very person who had been sent to kill me, and he was offering me his hand instead. The chains that had once held me captive now lay in a heap on the floor, and the oppressive weight of impending death seemed to evaporate into the cold air of the room. His gaze never wavered as he waited, his hand still extended toward me. There was no rush, no urgency, just quiet patience, as though time itself had slowed down in the presence of his command. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice trembling, a mixture of confusion and curiosity creeping in. "Why should I trust you?" The man before me did not flinch. He wasn't like anyone I had encountered before. His face remained a blur, the shadows still obscuring his features, but I could feel his eyes. His eyes seemed to see through me, as though he understood everything about me, even the things I could never say aloud. His silence stretched, profound weight hanging between us, and then, finally, he spoke. "I am the one who was sent to destroy you," he began, his voice still calm, but with an edge that made my heart race. "But I'm not your executioner. I'm here to give you something else, something more than death." His words echoed in my ears, and I felt an inexplicable chill spread down my spine. Something about them felt wrong. How could he be here to offer me something other than death? Death was all I knew. It was the only thing that had seemed certain in my life, the one truth that had never wavered. But now, this man, this stranger, was telling me that death wasn't my fate. His presence confused me, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that somehow, everything had changed. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Why would you help me? Why not just finish what you came here to do?" His hand remained outstretched, but he didn't move closer. It was as if he wanted me to make the choice, to accept the path he was offering, or to reject it and face whatever lay ahead. He exhaled slowly, almost as if he had been waiting for me to ask that very question. "Because your death would be a waste. You've been a pawn in someone else's game, and it's time for you to see the bigger picture." I felt a rush of emotions all at once, anger, confusion, disbelief. "A pawn?" I repeated, my voice rising. "I'm not a pawn. I've been through hell. They've used me, manipulated me, and now you're telling me that I was just a tool in some bigger scheme?" He stepped closer, closing the distance between us, though he kept a careful distance. I could sense the tension in the air like a pressure building inside the room. "You were never meant to be a pawn. Not in the way they wanted you to believe. You were always more than that. But they had to break you before they could control you." I took a step back, instinctively retreating from him, but his words were too powerful to ignore. "Who are they?" I demanded, still refusing to let go of my mistrust. "And why are you involved?" The man's eyes finally caught the light, and for the first time, I saw a glimpse of his face. His features were sharp, angular, but there was an unmistakable sadness in his expression, something that didn't belong in someone meant to be my executioner. "I'm not your enemy," he said softly. "I'm your ally, the ones who sent you to." This point, they've been pulling the strings behind the scenes for far too long, but we can change that. I can help you change that. His words were a mixture of truth and promise. I could feel the weight of them settle into my chest. "You want me to trust you?" I scoffed, still skeptical. "After everything they did to me? After everything I've lost?" His gaze softened, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't expect you to trust me right away. But trust this. Whatever happens next, it's not over for you. You're not going to die today, not by my hand. And you don't have to die in the way they've planned for you either." His words were like a lifeline thrown into a sea of uncertainty, but I still couldn't bring myself to grab hold. My entire life had been nothing but betrayals, lies, and loss. What was one more empty promise? But even as I doubted him, I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside me, some deep, buried instinct, was telling me to take the chance. The world had never been kind to me, but maybe, just maybe, this was my moment to take control of my fate. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in a long while, I made a choice. "All right," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside. "I'll trust you, but you have to tell me everything. Everything about why I'm here and what's going to happen next." He nodded, his eyes glinting with something unreadable, a mix of approval and something else, something darker. "Let's begin," he said, as if this was the first step in a much larger journey. His hand extended toward me. I couldn't move. My mind screamed at me to run, to resist, but my body refused to obey. Something in his gaze held me captive, something that made me doubt every instinct I had ever known. For a moment, I hesitated. I didn't know if I could trust him. I didn't know if I even had a choice anymore. But as his hand lingered in front of me, I realized that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end. Maybe it was only the beginning. The room seemed to close in around us as he spoke, each word he said carrying more weight than the last. "You are part of something much larger than yourself. This system, this world you've known, has been carefully constructed to control those, like you. People like me? We were bred to enforce the rules, to make sure the balance is maintained. But somewhere along the way, the balance tipped." His words hung in the air, heavy and almost suffocating. I took a step back, still unsure of what to make of this. "Control? What are you talking about?" I asked, feeling my heart rate quicken. "You said they were using me, but for what?" He looked at me for a long moment before answering. "You were the key to their plan, a test subject in a larger experiment. They didn't care about you, only what you could be. You were engineered to become something else, something beyond human." Breath caught in my throat. My mind struggled to make sense of his words. "I was, what, a test subject?" The very idea made me sick. The thought that I was nothing more than an experiment to them, a tool they could dispose of at will. "But I'm human. I'm not some project." He nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "Yes, you're human. But you were meant to become more than human. They injected you with a modified gene sequence, something designed to unlock abilities far beyond what we understand. You were created to be a weapon. A weapon." The word hit me like a blow to the chest. "That's why they've been hunting me down?" I murmured, more to myself than to him. "Because I'm some kind of weapon?" "Yes," he said softly. "But they've never been able to fully control you. That's why they had to eliminate you, because you were getting too close to understanding what they were doing." I stared at him, a rush of emotions flooding my chest. Anger, betrayal, confusion. How could this be my life? How had I not known? All this time, I had been fighting for survival, not understanding that I was the very thing they were terrified of. "But you," I said, suddenly feeling the weight of the decision I had made. "Why are you helping me? If I'm the enemy, why—" He cut me off, his voice urgent now, as if time were running out. "I'm not helping you because you're the enemy. I'm helping you because you were never meant to be their weapon. You've been manipulated your whole life, and I'm here to help you take control of your destiny." I could feel my thoughts racing. I had never asked for any of this. I had never wanted to be anyone's weapon. All I ever wanted was to live, to survive. But the more I listened to him, the more it became clear. My life was never about living. It had been about control, about power, about turning me into something else. "You want me to take control," I said, my voice thick with uncertainty. "But how? What do I even have left?" He stepped closer, his eyes locking with mine. "You have everything. You're more powerful than they ever realized, but you need to trust me. You need to let go of the fear they instilled in you." My mind reeled. "What are you going to do with me?" I whispered, not sure if I wanted to hear the answer. He didn't immediately respond. Instead, he turned away, his back to me for a moment, as if wrestling with something inside. Then he spoke, his voice low, almost as if he were speaking to himself. "I'm going to teach you how to control what they gave you, to help you unlock your full potential. We will stop them before they can use you as a weapon against others." I didn't fully understand everything he was saying, but one thing became clear. This was my chance to take control of my fate. I had been a prisoner of the system, of the lies they had told me, and now, standing in front of this man who was once supposed to be my executioner, I realized something vital. I could choose a different path. "And if I don't trust you?" I asked, my voice shaky but firm. "What happens then?" He turned to face me, his eyes filled with a determination I had never seen before. "If you don't trust me, then they win. They'll keep controlling you, manipulating you, and using you as a pawn until you're nothing but a shadow of what you could have been. I won't let that happen." A surge of emotion hit me. Anger, hope, and fear, all at once. I had spent my life running, surviving, and now I was being given a choice. A choice to fight back, to break free from the chains that had been wrapped around me for so long. "I don't want to be their weapon," I said, my voice filled with a newfound resolve. "I don't want to be anyone's pawn. I want to live for myself. I want to be free." He gave me a small nod, a hint of approval in his eyes. "Then it's time for you to learn how to fight, not just with your body, but with your mind. The power is already inside you. You just need to learn how to harness it." His words, though cryptic, felt like a spark that had the potential to set everything ablaze. For the first time in my life, I realized that I wasn't powerless. I wasn't just a victim in someone else's game. I could fight back. And I would. The first few days were a blur. My mind was struggling to catch up with the new reality he had introduced. Every word he spoke seemed to resonate, shaking something deep inside of me that I hadn't known existed. Power, potential, freedom. The more I heard him speak, the more I began to understand. But it wasn't easy. I had spent my entire life believing I was weak, that I was at the mercy of the world around me. But now, I was being told that I could be something else. Something more. "Focus," he said to me one morning, his voice as calm as ever, but carrying an undeniable authority. "This is the key. You must learn to control it, or it will control you." I didn't fully understand what "it" was at first, but I soon realized that "it" was the very thing they had used to try to turn me into their weapon. A genetic modification, a sequence of DNA, hidden deep within my cells, waiting for the right moment to awaken. I had been carrying it my entire life without knowing. And now, in this quiet, abandoned place, with nothing but him and the growing tension between us, I was starting to feel its presence. We stood in a small, dimly lit room. The walls were bare, save for a few pieces of technology scattered around, equipment I had never seen before. He was standing across from me, eyes fixed on me as always, waiting. "Close your eyes," he instructed. "Focus on your breath. Let everything else fade away." I did as he said, taking a slow breath. The first few moments were filled with nothing but the sound of my own heartbeat, the rush of blood in my ears. But then, something shifted. I felt a hum within my body. It started in my chest, deep beneath the skin, before it spread outwards. A tingle, like a spark of electricity, crackled along my arms, my legs, my fingertips. I gasped, my eyes snapping open. "What is this?" I asked, the panic starting to creep in. His voice remained calm, steady. "It's the power inside you. You're just beginning to feel it. Don't be afraid. This is only the beginning." I swallowed hard, trying to steady my breath. The sensations were overwhelming, as though something inside me was stretching, expanding, reaching outward like an unknown force. "But what do I do with it?" I whispered. He took a step forward, closing the distance between us, his presence both comforting and intimidating. "You learn to control it. You learn to use it as a tool, not as a weapon. This power inside you is a reflection of your will. It will only respond to your intentions. If you focus, if you allow yourself to truly understand it, you will become unstoppable. Unstoppable. The word echoed in my mind, but could I really control this power? Could I turn it into something that wasn't just destructive? I tried again, focusing on the sensation within me. I closed my eyes once more and breathed deeply, blocking out everything else. I focused on the hum, the electricity, the way it surged through me. It felt wild, untamed, like a storm trapped inside my body, desperate to break free. "Let it flow through you," he said, his voice a steady anchor. "Don't fight it. You've been fighting your entire life. Let it be a part of you." I nodded, though doubt still clung to me. My hands trembled as I reached out, trying to channel the strange energy through them. The room around me began to hum with the intensity of it, the air growing thicker, crackling, with electricity. I could feel it now, the power, not just inside me, but all around me. A sudden burst of force shot from my palm, sending a crackling wave of energy toward the wall. The impact was deafening, a violent explosion that left me gasping for breath. I opened my eyes and saw the wall where the energy had struck, cracked as though it had been shattered by the force. My heart pounded in my chest. "What have I done?" I whispered, staring at the damage I had caused. He was standing a few steps back now, watching me with something like pride in his eyes. "You're beginning to understand. You have the power to shape your world, to change it, but it all comes down to control. If you let your emotions govern you, the power will run wild. If you focus, you can make it do whatever you need." I took a shaky breath, my hands still tingling from the residual energy. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. This wasn't just a gift, it was a burden, a responsibility. If I didn't learn to control it, I could destroy everything. I could destroy myself. "You have to teach me how to control this," I said, the urgency in my voice undeniable. "I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to become like them." His expression softened slightly, his gaze steady. "That's why you're different. You're not like them, and you never will be." The days bled into one another as we trained. Each moment was filled with the pulse of something new, something dangerous, and it was all I could do to keep up. The power inside me felt like it was growing by the hour, expanding beyond my control, yet at the same time, it was a part of me, something I could no longer ignore. We spent hours each day in that quiet, sterile room. He taught me to focus, to channel my emotions, to guide the power rather than let it overwhelm me. It wasn't easy. Every time I made progress, the weight of the responsibility grew heavier. There were moments when I could feel the energy coursing through me with such intensity that I thought I might explode. But he was always there, his presence a steady anchor in the storm of chaos inside me. "I can't keep this up," I said. One afternoon, frustration bubbling to the surface as I collapsed onto the floor. My hands were trembling, and the raw energy I had summoned had left me feeling exhausted, empty. "It's too much. I can't control it. It's like it's controlling me." He stood in front of me, his expression calm but unwavering. "That's the first mistake you're making," he said, his voice low and steady. "You think the power is the problem, but it's not. It's your fear. You're afraid of what it can do. You're afraid of what you can do." I gritted my teeth, my fists clenched at my sides. "I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to become like them." His eyes softened, just a fraction, as he crouched beside me. "That's why it won't happen. You're not like them. You've already seen what they're capable of. They use power to control. You can use it to protect. But only if you stop seeing it as a curse and start seeing it as a gift." A gift. The word seemed so foreign. To me, so distant. For as long as I could remember, power had always been something to fear, something to be wary of. The people who controlled it had abused it. The government, the corporations, the ones who had turned me into their experiment, they had all used power for their own gain, without a second thought for the lives they destroyed in the process. But now, here I was, standing at the edge of something much larger than myself, something that could change everything. How do I stop being afraid? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. How do I learn to trust myself with this power? He paused for a moment, looking at me with those piercing eyes that seemed to see through everything. You have to let go. You have to accept that you're not just the victim of all this. You're the one who decides what happens next. Not them. Not anyone else. You. I looked down at my hands, still trembling from the exertion of the last training session. My palms were scarred from where I had once fought, from where I had tried to escape. But now, I was learning to control that which had once controlled me. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words. What happens now? I asked, meeting his gaze again. Where do we go from here? His lips curled into a faint smile. Now, you learn to fight back. You're not just a weapon anymore. You're a force of your own. You have the power to change things, to tear down the systems that created you and build something new. The implications of his words hung in the air, settling deep in my chest. I wasn't just running away anymore. I wasn't just surviving. I was about to fight for something larger than myself. For the first time, I could see a future where I wasn't just a pawn in someone else's game. But it wasn't just about power. It was about freedom, and the freedom to choose who I wanted to be. The weight of the power I carried was heavy, but it was mine to control. And I wasn't going to let anyone take that from me again. It had been weeks since I made the decision to fight back. The constant training, the endless moments of self-doubt, the quiet contemplation of what I was becoming, it all weighed heavily on me. But the more I learned, the more I understood. This power was mine. It had always been mine, even if I didn't know it. But with every passing day, a darker truth began to surface. The more I honed my abilities, the more I realized that using them came with a price. Power, in any form, always had consequences. Every time I unleashed it, I felt something inside me change, a shift, a subtle distortion, like I was walking a thin line between control and chaos. He had warned me about this, of course. Power will always test you, he had said. It will push you to your limits. But you have to be careful. Once you cross that line, there's no going back. At first, I thought he was exaggerating, but now, standing at the precipice of everything I had worked for, I understood the truth of his words. I stood alone in the center of the room, my breath steady, my pulse calm. The air around me was thick with tension as I focused on the energy flowing through my body. I could feel it, a hum, a vibration beneath my skin. It was like a living thing, alive and pulsing with the rhythm of my heartbeat. I had spent hours trying to perfect my control, trying to find the balance between using the power and not letting it consume me. But today felt different. Today, I was ready to face the one thing that had been haunting me all along, the system, the ones who had used me as an experiment, who had turned my life into a game. They were out there somewhere, and I knew they wouldn't stop until they had me. Back, I had to make a choice. I could keep running, keep hiding, trying to avoid them, or I could go to them, confront them, and take back everything they had stolen from me. What happens when I face them? I asked, my voice barely a whisper as I turned to him. He had been, watching me, standing in the shadows as always. What if I can't control it? What if I lose myself? He stepped forward, his expression unreadable, yet filled with an unspoken understanding. The choice is yours as always, he said. You can choose to run, or you can choose to fight. But remember this, no one can control you but you. Not them, not me, not anyone. I felt the weight of his words settle deep within me. For the first time, I realized that I wasn't just running from the past anymore. I wasn't running from them. I was running towards something. Toward a future I had the power to shape. The question wasn't whether I could control the power anymore. It was whether I had the strength to control my own destiny. I'll face them, I said, the decision firm in my voice. I'm not running anymore. I'm taking back what's mine. He nodded, the faintest smile pulling at the corners of his lips. Then let's prepare. The time is coming, and when it does, you'll be ready. The days that followed were a blur of preparation. There was no turning back now. I trained harder than ever, sharpening every skill, every instinct. I could feel the power inside me, thrumming like a live wire, waiting to be unleashed. But with each new step forward, I knew that the stakes were higher than ever. I was no longer the frightened girl I had been when I first met him. The girl, who had been terrified of her own reflection, afraid of the power she carried inside her. I had become someone else, someone stronger, someone who could change the world. But that didn't mean I was ready to face them. Not yet. The day had come. I stood in front of the towering building that once represented everything I despised, everything that had controlled my life. The building loomed over me, a cold, sterile structure that held the secrets of my past and the lies I had spent years trying to escape. Now it felt like a prison I had built with my own hands, but it wasn't just a prison anymore. It was a battlefield. I could feel the power within me, pulsing with energy, ready to tear through anything that stood in my way. But it wasn't just raw strength that I needed to wield today. It was my mind, my will, the choices I had made. I couldn't afford to lose control now. They'll be expecting you, he said, his voice low, almost imperceptible against the hum of the city around us. But they won't know what's coming. I nodded, my eyes locked on the entrance. The air around me was thick with anticipation, the sense of inevitability pressing against me like a storm ready to break. Every step forward felt like it could be my last, but there was no turning back. I was here for more than just revenge. I was here to take back everything they had stolen from me, my life, my freedom, and my future. As I stepped through the glass doors, I was met by the stark, impersonal halls I had come to know too well. The sterile white walls, the cold metal floors, the faint hum of machinery in the distance. This was where it all started, and this was where it would end. The doors slid open, and I walked into the central chamber. It was empty, save for a few chairs and a long table. But I knew they were watching. The room felt alive with their unseen presence, their cold, calculating, eyes following every movement I made. "Welcome," a voice said, smooth and cold, like polished marble. "I've been expecting you." I didn't need to look to know who it was. I could feel him, the one who had orchestrated my entire life, who had molded me into a weapon, the one who had created this entire nightmare. His figure emerged from the shadows, tall, imposing, but behind his gaze, I saw only arrogance. "You've been quite a disappointment," he continued, his voice dripping with disdain. "But I suppose I should have expected this. You were never meant to be one of us." I stepped forward, my gaze unwavering. "I was never meant to be anyone's tool. You tried to break me, but you failed. I'm not your weapon anymore." The man smirked, his lips curling into a mockery of a smile. "You still don't understand, do you? You were always meant to serve a purpose. You still do, but now you'll serve me." I could feel the power inside me flare, a violent surge that begged to be released. The energy crackled at my fingertips, the air vibrating with its intensity. But I kept it in check, only allowing a faint spark of it to slip through. "I don't serve anyone," I said, my voice firm, unwavering. "Not anymore." He took a step forward, his eyes narrowing. "You don't have a choice." In that moment, I knew exactly what I had to do. The choices I had made, the power I had learned to control, had all led me here. I wasn't just fighting for my freedom. I was fighting for something greater, the right to exist on my own terms. Before he could react, I released the power, unleashing it with all the force I could muster. The air around us crackled, filled with the sound of energy bursting through the room like a thunderclap. The walls trembled, the lights flickered, and for a brief moment, I felt the world tilt on its axis. The man's expression faltered as he took a step back, his confidence faltering in the face of the raw power I had. unleashed. But then, his eyes narrowed and he reached for the control panel beside him, activating some kind of defense system. I wasn't just up against him, I was up against everything he had built. But I didn't hesitate. I surged forward, channeling every ounce of energy within me into a concentrated force, aiming it directly at him. The blast hit its mark, sending him crashing against the wall, his body crumpling under the force of my attack. For a moment, everything was silent. The world seemed to hold its breath. But then I saw it, the faintest twitch of his hand, a sign that he wasn't completely done. He wasn't dead, but he was defeated. I didn't give him a chance to recover. As he lay there, disoriented, I walked up to him, my steps slow and deliberate. "You don't control me anymore," I said, each word filled with finality. "I'm done with your games." He looked up at me, a mixture of surprise and fury in his eyes. But there was something else, too, a hint of fear. Fear of what I had become. Fear of the power I now held in my hands. And in that moment, I realized that I wasn't just fighting him. I was fighting everything he represented. The system, the lies, the manipulation. Everything that had held me back for so long. I took a deep breath, the weight of the moment settling over me. It was over. I had won. The power inside me hummed with satisfaction, a gentle reminder that I had claimed my future. I wasn't their weapon. I wasn't anyone's pawn. I was free.